Get down here, have a listen. What is happening? The Tour de France is happening. We're about a week and a half away from the Tour de France kicking off. Let's go, Rob. This is my favourite magazine. When the tour comes around, I'm always looking for it. Come up with the goods this year.
Thanks, Mitch.
Rob Arnold.
Mitch Docker. I usually interview you. What's going on?
Not a lot. Just been hanging out here. How's it been? How's been the atmosphere? You're at one end of the room, I'm at the other. What's happening down your end?
I've seen plenty of people. I'm right at the entrance. I've been enjoying watching Sydney welcome cycling. That doesn't happen very often.
Spoken in Sydney. Yeah. It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's good. Come back next year. Don't do Melbourne again. It's too cold down there.
It's been crispier, actually.
You know what's great is this is the first... I've been involved in cycling professionally for over 30 years, and I think this is the first time I've ever walked to an event from my house.
How good's that?
Perfect.
Let's talk about Ride magazine. Firstly, the history of Ride. Rob, how many years have you been doing this now?
I started Ride Media in 1998. The first issue of what was a quarterly magazine called Ride Cycling Review came out on the 8th or 9th of July 1998, which happened to be the same day Willy Voet was arrested. So cycling aficionados know what that represents. That was the beginning of the end of doping, we hope, because it marked the beginning of the Festina affair. That was the first day my magazine was on the newsagents.
Wow, perfect.
I was ready to come home and retire.
And what edition of the Tour de France manual is this?
I started doing a tour guide for Australia in 2003 for the Centenaire, and it was meant to be a one-off, and I just kept doing it. And it's become, it's just an annual tradition, really. So this is my 23rd tour guide.
It certainly is an annual tradition, because this, like, I picked and choose some of the magazines along the way. Sometimes I got yours, sometimes I didn't. But when it came to the tour guide, it was a must. And when I became professional, it was a must that I had to be in there. And I love that I knew I would be there, because you used to always do a segment in here, Australian Pros, who was going to be in the tour. And I was like, yes, I'm going to be in the Ride magazine. I loved it that my name was going to be in the magazine. The first year I turned pro, I got that magazine and I looked for my name. They even put me in the team. Possibly I could have been in there. You always gave me that chance. Even though there was no chance in hell I was getting in there. I love that you looked after me.
I remember we used to always publish the list of all of the Australians, but it's difficult to do now because there's a glut of Aussies in the peloton, and it didn't used to be like that. When I went to the tour in '97, there was Hank Vogel, Stuart O'Grady, Pat Yonker, and Neil Stevens was riding. And that was at the time like the most representation we'd ever had in the tour. It was crazy that we've got the number of guys in the peloton, in the elite World Tour peloton now. It's madness. But I haven't been excited about racing for a couple of weeks since the Giro ended, but while we're talking about new generation or generations of Australian professional cyclists, do you know Luke Tuckwell is leading the Giro at the moment, leading the next generation Giro.
The baby Giro. I did not know that.
And it's his 21st birthday, I think, today or tomorrow.
Wow, fantastic. So the new talent coming through.
From Orange, and he's riding with the Red Bull development team. So, fantastic. Yeah, terrific. His father approached me when his son was 11 or 12 saying, let's do a piece about the future of Australian cycling. So to watch that develop into what it is amazing.
We're talking about the tour, something I've got to experience. I never rode the tour myself, but I got to ride, I got to travel with the tour the last 4 years. Being on the other side of the fence, as a journo, give us an insight to what that is like, Rob. I saw you last year at the tour. We were in Florence. We saw each other. The tour started in Italy, and it's a whirlwind being on the other side of the fence, isn't it?
It's all fairly normal. No, I'm used to it. I mean, I'm not going to the tour this year. I went last year, and it was my first DNF. I didn't get to the end, and I've done 24 tours and always reached the end. And it's kind of odd you are, when you first see it, it is such a huge travelling cavalcade that you just think you'll never get used to it. But now when I turn up, I just feel like, oh, this is more like home. I've spent 400 or 500 days on the Tour de France in my life, and it's a big family. And once you realise that one of the biggest challenges in the media corps is being able to get to your workstation in time to do the work, rather than saying hello to the 300 or 400 people as you make your way through the village.
Very true, very true. Trying to get work done there can prove to be very difficult. Watching the race, chatting to someone, but actually trying to get some work done. Let's talk about this. When you come to putting one of these together, how does it all start? When does it all start? What's the process like putting a Tour de France guide together?
Traumatic, really. I mean, that's a one-man job at the moment. I've done, this is my 23rd edition, but since 2017, it's been entirely me in the Australian department, let's say, but I do it in collaboration with L'Equipe and with ASO. So I'm thinking about it all of the year. But then October comes, the route is revealed, and then you start to focus on it a lot more. But to be honest, I sit down in front of the computer to start designing it about 6 weeks before print deadline, so middle of April. And then May becomes no riding and a lot of computer time.
Well, I'm going to have a look at this. There's something to have a look through. Pass this around because we're going to be talking through it now. Let everyone have a quick look. Because something that Ride Media or Ride Magazine is very famous for is the big images. It's something I loved about it. Tell me about the images and the decision to have those images, the way the layout is. What's the story behind that?
This is a good one because in '98 when I started doing the magazine, there was online coverage of cycling, but it was scant. There was certainly no visual representation. There were no videos or the like in '98. And so I used to try and jam as much information as possible onto the print because I saw the paper as real estate that I had to utilise. And so the font was small, the images were plentiful, and I just kept wanting to put more and more and more onto the page. In this issue, I made a conscious effort to really just pull back on the text and not try to do everything because I know people use the second screen, they're watching television, they're flicking through the magazine. So the idea of to make this year's tour guide was to do it as less convoluted as possible, as neat as possible, and the old school premise of a big full page photo goes a long way, and it also makes the layout process a lot quicker.
There is some logistical sense to it. Let's talk about it. This year's tour, 3,320 kilometres, 500 metres of vert. That's a lot of climbing, 7 flat stages, 6 mountain stages, 2 time trials. It's all in France this year. First time since 2020. Week 1, I picked out a couple of stages. Stage 1, starting and finishing in Lille. They're right up north in France this year. Up near Roubaix, that's the good thing about Lille. It's a flat stage, 185k. Not typical to start like that for the tour. What are your thoughts about the first week of the tour? They've also got stage 5, here's the time trial, 33k time trial as well. Any insights to that first week this year? It's a lumpy week. There's no standout stages, they're all difficult. Lots of little curves, they're going over Britannia, that area there. So it's a tough first week, isn't it? Well, we call it a first week. It's actually 10 days.
The first 10 days, I mean, it's not until stage 12 that they do a mountain stage, and that's not in the Pyrenees or the Alps, so it's on the way down to the Pyrenees. At a first glance, I thought this year's route was rather dull, and then I started examining it when I was putting the magazine together, and the first 10 days has got some highlights, but I started wondering if it might be a little bit like 2016 where there was just sprint after sprint after sprint, and it took a long time to get into the GC battle. And then I saw the opening stage of the Dauphiné this year, and I thought, it doesn't matter what the profile like, they can just go nuts anyway because it's Pogacar versus Vingegaard versus Evenepoel versus Van der Poel, which was, for me, indicative of this generation of talent which makes racing in all honesty, better than I can remember it. Ideally, it's as clean as it's ever been. Hopefully, in the next 2 weeks is when all the doping experts are going to come out from under the rug pile carpet and start offering their opinions, because that's what happens come tour time. But I think it's the opening stage is potentially a little bit dull, but the way that they're racing in 2025, I think it's going to be stunning.
I totally agree with you. The way they're racing these days, it doesn't matter. Week 2, it changes. Stage 12, we already alluded to it. They're going at the Huracan. It's a very tough uphill finish. Then they've got a 10.9 kilometre uphill time trial on stage 13. Stage 14 is also going up the Super Banger, which is 39 years since they've been there.
I went to France in 1992, just before the Olympics, as a backpacker, and I hadn't ridden my bike for weeks or months, in fact, and I got to Le Champ de Bagnères, and I hired a mountain bike with this early non-suspended generation of mountain bike with a triple chain ring and everything, and I rode Super Bagnères, and I did the first 7 or 8 kilometres off-road, and then I thought, I better do the hard bit on the road. And as I was going up and up and up and up and up on a road that was longer on a climb than I can remember, I remember pulling over at one point, sitting on the side of the road and just crying and just thinking, I'm never going to make it. So I have fond memories of Super Bagnères, and even though it was really it was a mental torture in 92, then I fast forward to the years where I was working at the Tour de France, and I did go parapente from Super Bagnères, so I've been back. It's a top spot. There's a terrific huge ski resort or ski car park at the top. And it's because of that 1992 memory, I'm sort of nostalgic for a place that I've never been during the tour, even though I've been to so many of the climbs in the Pyrenees since then. And it was also here where Greg LeMond won a stage when it was last, I think Greg LeMond won the stage, we took the yellow jersey anyway. And it's going to be something different, and I don't think it's as hard as I remember it to be.
Why has it taken so long to come up there?
It's just a case of, I think more or less, I know Christian Prudhomme well since he's taken over the directorship, and he is very innovative. He was the one who put a stage finish at the Col d'Orbisque for the first time in, can't remember, 2016, 17, maybe 14 actually. And he likes to explore new territories. And that's one of the reasons where we've seen the developments like La Planche de Belleville and the Ventoux finish of, or even 2009, it feels like just the other day, but that was on the penultimate stage, which was crazy to think about. And there was sort of these initiatives that Christian has put in play that I guess ruled out Super Bagnères being a return. And also in 1989, Le Champ de Bagnères, which was at the base of that climb, was very much a term town, like an old place where old people went to get their rheumatoid arthritis seen to in the spas. But nowadays it's just an adventure town like you would never believe that it could possibly be back in 1989 when they last raced there.
Let's go to week 3. And it's quite crazy because they're heading back to Ventoux, Col de Loz.
Col de Loz.
And also, that's passing over 2,300 metres.
There's some... I put the elevation in for stage 18. It's 5,792 metres for 174 kilometres. Like, that is crazy. I mean... But then if you can cast your mind back to the Jean-Marie Leblanc days of the Tour de France when there were mountain stages of 240, 260 kilometres, when they didn't do elevation gain on the menu, like they didn't actually do the sum total of how much climbing there was, it would be frightening to have a look at those these days with that new knowledge. And also cycling's evolved enormously in the time I've been, and you've been racing, because people understand power, people understand elevation gain, people understand all of these nuances that weren't even part of the cycling parlance when I started Ride Cycling Review, for example.
Fast forwarding right to the last stage, I want to talk about Paris. It's different this year, Paris.
It's crazy good.
Montemarte, the climb, it's a 1.1k at almost 6%. They're heading over it 3 times. It was in the Olympic road race. What are your thoughts about this?
Do you know the film Rendezvous?
No.
I wrote about it in the tour guide. There's a QR code, scan it. It's a film about a man and a car who's meeting a woman at Sacré-Cœur, up in Montmartre. And it's a similar sort of course, but the film is 8 minutes long, and it's basically him leaving Port de Mayo and then going through the city as fast as he can possibly go, early in the morning, and then basically with no laws, you're running red lights and all sorts of things. If you watch that film, you'll understand why the final stage this year is going to be exciting.
Do you think traditionally they should change that? You know, last year we saw the time trial in Nice, different to what we were used
100% they had to change the last stage. I mean, I worked 23 tours or 24 tours to France, and all of those finished in Paris, and all of the stages to Paris were the most painful of the tours I've ever done. Like, they were just tediously dull. Even if Robbie won or if Caleb won, which has happened, or, you know, when Mark Cavendish was having his blitz, by the time you got to Paris, you just didn't really care because it was just so processional, so mundane. And I think it's going to be hard for people who are working on the tour to still be as enthused as they probably need to be for the Sunday. I think it's good to have a little bit of a pause in the action, but not quite the level of tradition of what we know the 6.8 circuit, the 6.8 kilometre circuit to be in Paris. And so for me, I'm not riding, and I'm not there doing a live coverage like I used to. So I'm happy to watch. It's going to be fantastic.
What about the race itself? What do you think? Who's going to win it? I sort of see it as a climber's race. The way it is, the uphill time trial, it's going to be suited best to a climber. But you know what? We've got the Gacha. He can do everything.
I mean,
Can anyone beat it?
I don't know. It would be really awful, wouldn't it, if you were a GC rider of Ben O'Connor's ilk, you know, where you're you've finished second in the Vuelta, you've been fourth in the Tour de France, you know, you're sort of knocking on the door of a potential podium, and then Pogačar comes along. Like, it would just be so demoralising, because I don't think it's at all boring. I think we're in a blessed era to be able to watch the guy who is on top of his game, who is willing to attack, who's not playing a strategic game, who's actually racing his bike because he really loves it. I think it's stunning to watch. And it's even what makes the Pogačar era, let's say, so much better is that he does, in July, have someone who's beaten him twice and can challenge him. And it's Prudhomme told me years ago, the best thing that you can have in cycling in an event like the Tour de France is a rivalry. And I think that still exists. And although Pogačar romped it in last year, we had an injured Vingegaard. I've met Jonas a few times in Singapore. We've had a lunch together. We caught up, him and his wife and his daughter. And I have a real soft spot for him and the way he rides. So I think it's going to be a stunning battle between those two. But then, who knows, maybe Evenepoel can pull something miraculous out of his bottom.
What about Primož Roglič? Is he off the cards? Is he going to come back? How's he recovered from the Giro? Is he a guy that you're considering?
It's hard to write about Primož because he's got such a, you don't win 4 Vueltas without being a terrific bike rider. But imagine if he did just stay on the bike and then all of a sudden he was there in contention like he was in 2020. That'd be wild. But he seems to be cursed in July, doesn't he?
What about the Aussies? What are you liking about the Aussies? GC, sprints, what are we thinking?
I get nostalgic for the number of times I've said that Michael Matthews will win a stage. If you ask my children, they'll say that Michael Matthews was going to win pretty much every race that I watched. But, I think the way that Ben is riding...
Has he been impressive enough at Swiss for you?
I haven't seen enough of Swiss to know. I haven't watched a lot of racing in the last little while because I've been sat in front of the computer. But I think that the cautious approach of Ben could be beneficial. But I think someone like that also needs to be in the peloton a lot more, just to sort of get rid of the mental demons or something. And it's going to be interesting to see how Jayco Alula plays it, because we've got a change of management, a significant change of management. You know how it's played out there, and I don't know what we can expect because, frankly, I haven't seen. It was very difficult to find a photo of Ben O'Connor in the Jayco Alula kit this year because he hasn't raced very much.
He hasn't. He's been in altitude camp. He's been preparing specifically for the tour. But, yeah, look, he's been showing good signs through the Swiss. He's sitting in 5th GC at the moment, a couple of minutes behind.
I know. Oh, yeah.
So he is up there. All right, I'm going to hit you with it. Give me your top three. Come Paris, who's winning the tour, second and third?
Just for the point of difference, I'll say that Jonas will win his third. Tadej will be second. I really think that it'll be the same trio as last year on the podium, so Evenepoel third. But see, I review the tour quite a lot, and I think the Pogačar approach is so compelling because, I'll give you an example of why I think it's so compelling. Like last year, he won the tour by near on 10 minutes. If you watch the last stage, which was the time trial, where he could have rolled around and still taken the yellow jersey, but he ended up winning the stage and taking so many risks. I thought, imagine if he was 3K from the line, definitely going to win his third tour, and he just went, just ate shit for no reason at all. Like that could happen. With someone who seems to race as randomly as he does, like, there's been so many times when I've previewed races, and then before the print magazine comes out, there's been a crash and Chris Froome's blown his nose, and all of the preamble is washed away before the magazine even comes off the press. So I'm always hyper aware of the potential of accidents in cycling.
What's a stage to look out for? If you're only going to watch one or two stages this year, what would you pick?
I need to go through the list very, 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 very quickly. But there was some that were real standouts. The Ventoux you can't ignore, but you can ignore it for the first long stanza. You just have to come in for the last 25K.
That's stage 16.
But I really think that it's going to be stage 18, the one from Courchevel to Col de la Loze. That's going to be just crazy, just totally crazy.
It's perfect. Stage 16, stage 18, tune in. And give us an idea, Rob, inside the guide here, the little bits that you put in there, because it's not just about this year's tour, it's about the history of the stages, what's happened in each stage, little paragraphs. Give everyone a little idea, if they haven't read the guide before, what you put into it to paint the picture of the stages, the picture of the tour, and outside the guide, there's also some other extra stories in there too.
Yeah, I mean, the tour guide, the official Tour de France guide, came about because it was the centenary edition in 2003. It was it was the centenary, but the 90th edition. So it means that there's huge amount of history. And like what I like to do is begin the magazine with an image from yesteryear. And this time I've chosen 100 years ago. And the image at the beginning of the magazine is something that it's a picture tells way more than 1,000 words. And that's what I try to do with the magazine, is to have a narrative that keeps the flow going all the way through, so that you get to know the teams, you see the lists. Obviously, there's a lot of data in there that can be collated or is available to you online, but I think there's something fun about the magazine that you get to flick and go through the honour roll again. Like, my kids have only grown up knowing that I publish the tour guide, because I've done it their whole life. And even yesterday morning, my 15-year-old said to me, "How come Eddie Merckx only won 5 tours? I've been looking through the honour roll, and there's always, even though some elements of the magazine are repetitive, it's important to just go back over the statistics." But to answer your question, what else is in there. I just try to form a narrative that the Tour de France is a bike race, but it's so much more than just a sporting event. Like, it's a cultural event. It's a cultural reference point in France. It's sport. It's tourism. It's the thing that truly, it's the Tour de France that hooked so many people into cycling. And people have said to me, why don't you do a Vuelta guide or a Giro guide? Those races are interesting when they're being contested, but it wouldn't sell because it doesn't have the following. It's not this mainstream thing like the Tour de France was, and will be.
Well, I urge you all, if you don't already have one, get yourself a tour guide, because I find myself throughout the whole month referring to that. That's my stage guide. Love having it in paper, in my hands. I know you can find those stage guides on the internet, but I just love having that sitting next to the TV whenever I'm watching the tour. I used to travel with that, made sure I got it before I went to the tour. That was my guide. So, Rob, great to have you up here.
Mitch, thank you very much. I still remember the United Water days of 2000 and, you have to remind me, 6 probably, when you crashed on the way to Tanunda, and in the break that day was McEwen, Sanchez. There were 4, I can't remember. You and Simon Gerrans, who won the stage, and now you're commentating. And I really like your work. I think the Life in the Peloton is just a terrific initiative. I wish you all the best with all of the things that you're doing. And I've watched you grow up from a junior until retirement. So great career, and it's a pleasure to be sitting on the stage with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Eric. Oh, I don't even know if I answered any of your questions.
Right, perfect. Great stories too. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Stories about growing up and things like that.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
No, that's yours.
All right, super. Yep.
Thanks.